So students of standard 7, you must have got the idea regarding elements, compounds and mixtures from the previous video. Today I am going to explain those portions which has been skipped. So first portion you see, we have read about matter, which shows that matter is something which occupies space, it has got mass and it can be perceived by the senses. And these matters in the previous class were studied as solid, liquid and gases. And later on in this category we may classify them into pure substances and impure substances. If we classify them into pure substances, they are elements and compounds, and if we classify them into impure substance, they are mixtures. So elements can be defined as those pure substances made up of one kind of atoms only that cannot be broken down into two or more simpler substances. Here hyphens are given, you need to frame them into one sentence. Coming to examples, we have got potassium, calcium, sodium, magnesium, iron, etc. Coming to compounds, these elements combine together to form compounds which are made up of two or more elements or that can be broken down into elements by chemical means only. In your book, only isn't mentioned, you need to write down that. And the last one, that is mixtures. These are impure substances made up of two or more substances mixed in any proportion, and substances retain their own properties and they can be broken down or separated by physical methods. You can write down, they can be broken down or separated by physical means or methods. And these mixtures are classified into homogeneous and heterogeneous. So you can see the examples. Example of potassium as element, potassium chloride as compound, and potassium chloride solution mixed with water, that will be considered as a mixture. Coming to the presence of elements, does it occur in our environment? Definitely it occurs. It occurs in our earth crust as oxygen, silicon, aluminium, iron, calcium, others like sodium, potassium, magnesium. In the atmosphere, it is present in form of gases like nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, noble gases like helium, neon, argon, and other gases like carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, etc. Then we have in human body also certain percentage of elements like for example oxygen, carbon, calcium, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, etc. So now it's time for something new, that is atom. We have read that elements are made up of only one kind of atoms. Now what are these atoms? Atoms are those basic units out of which these entire elements are made up of. In biology you have studied that entire living organisms are made up of cell, which is the structural and functional unit of an organism. Similarly, atom is the basic unit through which the entire composition of the matter stands off. Okay, and these are very small particles which are incapable of independent existence and they take part in chemical reaction. And these atoms are further divided into three subatomic particles. Subatomic particles, that is electrons, protons and neutrons. I repeat, electrons, protons and neutrons. If we see the diagram, you can see there is a centrally bound nucleus where we have got protons and neutrons, and the electrons, just like your planets revolve around the sun, these electrons revolve around in their fixed orbits throughout and around the nucleus. So if we come to the charge, protons are positively charged particles, neutrons are chargeless or they do not have any charge, whereas electrons are negatively charged particles. You need to remember these points as well as the diagram and definition of atom. Moving to the third portion, coming to this differentiation between metals and non-metals, the elements are classified into metals, non-metals, metalloids and noble gases. Metals, you can know that they are generally solids. As you can see, this is a metal and they are solid. They produce sound, they have got luster. These bangles you can see, they are also kind of solids, and these generally have got shine or luster among themselves, whereas non-metals, they do not have any shine and they generally can be classified into liquids, gases and soft solids at room temperature. This is important, you write accordingly. Then coming to malleability, you need to write down the definition. The property by which metals can be beaten into sheets is called malleability. You write down the property by which metals can be beaten into sheets is called malleability, and the property by which metal can be drawn into wires is called ductility. The property by which metal can be drawn into wires. So metals are generally malleable and ductile in nature, whereas non-metals are non-malleable and non-ductile. Coming to conductivity, when you touch a hot vessel, you generally feel it hot. Why? Because metals are good conductor of heat and electricity, whereas non-metals are poor conductors. We should not write bad, we should write poor conductors of heat and electricity. Metals generally have got high melting and boiling point, whereas non-metals have low melting and boiling point. Coming to density, metals have got high density and whereas non-metals have low density. So question might come with respect to the properties, you have to learn these points. Coming to metalloids, metalloids are those elements which shows properties of both metals and non-metals like boron, silicon, arsenic, antimony, etc. Whereas noble gases are also called inert gases or rare gases, which are present in trace amount or rare amount in the atmosphere, and they do not react with any substance or any element. That is why they are noble, or they are chemically inert or unreactive. Example like helium, neon, argon, xenon, krypton, etc. Now comes the symbols which has been taught previously also, like with sodium, Na, potassium, K, with calcium as the Latin name, calcium, calc, Ca, magnesium, Mg, aluminium, Al, zinc, Zn, iron, Fe, with ferrum, lead, plumbum, Pb, copper, cuprum, Cu, mercury, hydrogyrum, Hg, silver, argentum, Ag, gold, aurum, Au, platinum with Pt. The next we are having non-metals, hydrogen with symbol H, nitrogen as N, oxygen as O, fluorine as F, chlorine as Cl. These all are gases. The only liquid non-metal is bromine with symbol Br, and the others like iodine I, carbon C, sulfur S, silicon Si and phosphorus P are solids in nature. Moving to the metalloids, the boron with B symbol, silicon with Si, germanium with Ge, arsenic with As, antimony with Sb, tellurium as Te. Whereas noble gases we have helium He, neon Ne, argon Ar, krypton Kr, xenon Xe, radon Rn. Then we have activity series. It is a very important definitions. Like children, we have got the top 10 students in your class. Similarly, there are top metals arranged sequentially according to their reactivity or their reaction with other elements. So the first three are potassium, sodium and calcium, which are active metals. They are so reactive in nature, children, that they can react even with cold water and show variety of like observation you are having, which you will study in higher classes. Then we have magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, plumbum, which are lead, which reacts with boiling water or steam. Then we have certain metals which do not react even with water. Those are least reactive metals like your copper, mercury, silver, platinum, aurum, and this is the reason, since they are least reactive, they are used in making jewelries and all, and for ages and ages they do not get destroyed or any kind of rust formation in there itself. So this is the activity series. You have to remember that is definition. It is a series of metals or list of metals where it is arranged according to their reactivity, and the most reactive element is at the top and the least one is at the bottom. Moving to the next one, we are having compounds. You have to remember the properties as mentioned in the previous video, that compounds are those substances made up of two or more elements that are chemically combined in fixed proportion and can be separated by chemical means only. So you can see compounds are formed chemically from two or more elements in fixed proportion. They are homogeneous in nature. They are mixed up with each other very nicely. You cannot differentiate among themselves. They are having definite set of properties and they do not retain the properties of the previous one or elements. They can be separated by only chemical means. They have on their own melting and boiling point, and energy is either released or absorbed during the process. It can be exothermic or endothermic. So when we differentiate between elements and compounds, we have these points. Elements are made up of one kind, whereas compounds are made up of two or more kinds. We are having element hydrogen, oxygen, and compound it is water, H2O. Here they cannot be broken down into simple elements by either physical or chemical means. Here it can be broken only by chemical means. You can see the elements are far away from each other and they are having their own set of properties, like hydrogen is a gas, oxygen is also a gas, both are colorless and odorless, whereas you can see the water, you can see them, it is visible to us, and at the same time it is in liquid state, not in the gaseous state like individual atoms. And here hydrogen is combustible and does not support combustion, whereas oxygen is non-combustible but supports combustion. but in case of water it is neither combustible nor it supports combustion. So these are the differences you need to recognize among themselves, that properties of elements and compounds vary from each other when they are present. Coming to chemical formula, you have to remember these all kinds of metals with their symbols and valencies. Valencies, we know it is the number of hydrogen atoms which can be combined with the one atom of any element or radical, or you can simply write valency is the combining capacity of an element. Valency is the combining capacity of an element. So as you can see, here we are having potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, zinc and aluminium. Similarly, we are having different radicals. You have to remember these and as well as valencies and frame them into your compound formation. Like here, see, I have taken potassium and I have taken chlorine with chloride as the anion, and when I crisscross their valencies I get KCl, that is potassium chloride. So if you start making them into compounds, you will find numerous compounds being done. So let us see one example, like sodium oxide. We have taken sodium valency 1 plus and oxygen as 2 minus, and we crisscross the valencies, we get sodium oxide, that is Na2O. So if I take another valency, suppose you say me, madam, let me take sodium, suppose I take a difficult one, sodium sulfide. Okay, and then let me take, suppose I take sodium phosphate. So how I am going to write all these? Okay, we will take another one also, suppose aluminium nitrate, and we will take aluminium, suppose carbonate. Okay, so let me say, first you will write down the compound like this, then you will write down Na1 plus the valency, sulfide, that is S2 minus, and then you will crisscross, make sure it comes to the end, and then you will write in between Na2S. We do not write S1 because writing 1 is not required. Moving to the another one, sodium phosphate, suppose I write Na1 plus, and in that case we write phosphate PO4 3 minus. So 3 minus comes down, 1 plus comes here. So it is Na3PO4. Okay. Here we will take aluminium nitrate. We take aluminium 3 plus. Nitrate as NO3 1 minus. 1 comes down, 3 comes here. So it is AlNO3 whole 3. Or we take aluminium Al3 plus. Carbonate CO3 2 minus. We have Al2 CO3 whole 3. Okay, this is case of your compound formation. Moving to the names of these, you remember, similarly it was told in the previous video. The one important video that you have to remember is this one, the important chart that has been given. Children, you need to remember the entire formulas of these, like chalk with CaCO3, sand with SiO2, glucose with C6H12O6, cane sugar with C12H22 and O11, vinegar with CH3COH, methanol with CH3OH, ethanol with C2H5OH, benzene with C6H6, caustic soda with NaOH, caustic potash with KOH. You can get the difference between these two. Rock salt is NaCl, litharge PbO, and niter with KNO3. So if you remember the formulas, you can easily remember the name of the elements in the compounds. Moving on to the mixtures, the same component or explanation has been given where mixtures properties are there, and it has been classified into your homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous, there is same composition throughout and they are uniformly mixed, whereas in heterogeneous, different composition throughout and they are not at all uniformly mixed. If we go by the examples, in homogeneous we have example of solid as alloy of brass. We have solid liquid as iodine and alcohol, that is your tincture iodine, and which is used generally as an antiseptic. Then we have liquid petrol and kerosene, which generally are homogeneous in nature. When coming to heterogeneous, we are having dust in air, which floats generally, showing heterogeneity. Then we have chalk and water or charcoal and water as solid liquid mixture, and orange juice, kerosene and water with your liquid mixtures. Moving to the next one, there is differentiation between elements, compound and mixture. You need to remember these. And here in case of your separation of mixtures, it's the same like in 6th standard. Just you have to remember, in this feature you have to remember the definition, that is by sublimation. You have to remember the definition and example, and at the same time the experiment given below. with your examples like your ammonium chloride, naphthalene, iodine, camphor, etc., and non-sublimable like sand, sodium chloride, potassium chloride. In this case, only you have to remember the definition, the example, and the technique of separation. That's it. Nothing else is required. No details is required. So coming to sublimation, see, the change of state from solid to gas is known as sublimation. So if you have taken a mixture of a sublimable and non-sublimable solid, you take it off in a petri dish, and finally you heat it up with the help of a wire gauge and Bunsen burner. You cover it with an inverted funnel with a cotton at the top end of the funnel, and when you heat it, you can see the sublimable solid vapors gets collected on the funnel, whereas the non-sublimable stays at the bottom. The next one is separation of mixtures by evaporation. When you take a soluble mixture, like for example it will be solid liquid mixture, by evaporation it is soluble in nature, you can heat them off and finally get the liquid and solid. The liquid being vapor gets evaporated and finally the solid stays behind. So we have taken an experiment with salt and water, and finally we have mixed it up. When we heat it, the solid gets collected at the bottom, it remains back, and whereas water is lost into the atmosphere. Moving to the next one, we are having distillation. This is important. You have to remember the definition of distillation, where liquid is converted to vapor and the impurities are removed and finally it gets collected. Okay, so you can see this experiment. We have taken the impurities in the water and we have started heating it. It gets collected in the Liebig's condenser. You must remember the name. And in condenser, what happens? The vapors that gets collected, it gets converted from gaseous to liquid state and gets collected in a proper conical flask, which can be used for lab purposes or which can be used. You have seen distilled water getting formed by this process only. Then we have separation of mixtures with the help of your immiscible liquids. We have taken a separating funnel where the immiscible liquids are there, and with the help of a stopper we can remove the bottom and slowly collect in the receiver. And in that way we can see that the heavy one generally settles at the bottom and the lighter one gets settled at the top. So in that way you must remember which is the heavier and which is the lighter one. The differentiation has been given in this. Moving to the next one, that is your fractional distillation. In this case also the same procedure of distillation is done. Only in this case there is liquid mixture, whereas in case of your solid liquid it was only distillation. In liquid mixtures it is fractional distillation. You have to remember the definition, where the boiling point helps in differentiation and gets collected. The one with the lower boiling point collects in the receiver and the higher one remains in the flask, which can be collected. The boiling point are mentioned here, and like benzene with 80 degrees centigrade, petroleum with 40 to 80, toluene at 110 and kerosene with 200 to 300. You have to just remember the experiment and the labelings with your technique of separation, principle and examples. The last one is the chromatography, where you can see the color can approach according to their phase, and there is two phases present. There are two phases. One is stationary phase, another one is mobile phase. The stationary phase generally stays there with the absorbent medium, and the mobile phase shows graduation or movement of the color. You can see the change in color approaching. Generally it is done in like big industries, in paper chromatography, in dye industries, etc. Okay, and after this we wind up the chapter. Coming to this objective based question, let us go for the sequence. That is your the sequence is for name the following: B, E, A, C, D. We have B, E, A, C, D. Then we have number 2 as first one silver, number 2 proton, number 3 NaOH, number 4 sublimation, number 5 brass. Then we have question number 3 with sequence 2, 4, 1, 5, 3. And the last one, question number 5, we are having potassium nitrate, number 2 mercury, number 3 methyl alcohol, number 4 sulfur dioxide, number 5 carbonic acid. Okay, thank you so much.